Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Knicks Film School Summer League podcast. My name is Andrew Claudio, aka GMAC. For those of you watching on YouTube, you already see these fine gentlemen to my right. But for those of you listening on the podcast feed, I am joined by the one and only Jeremy Cohen, the star of the Knicks offseason in the content creator world. First off, Jeremy, how you doing?
Hey, Andrew. I don't know about star, but I'll take it.
I'll say it.
Thank you.
Star. Everybody, the number one follow, go-to person for all things cap and content related. And the reason why he's the number one is because the NBA made it so that you needed Jeremy in your life in order to understand if a trade works going forward. It's your time, Jeremy. It is literally your time.
I'll take that. I'll at least try to help, but predicting and all that stuff, but I'll take it. Thank you.
Yeah. And then, of course, one and only Mr. David Futernick, friend of the pod.
Hello.
How are you, sir? And you know what? We call you Fuddy, and we've introduced you as Futernick in the past. I gotta keep reminding myself, it's Futernick. Like, it's actually F like Foo Fighters.
I've told John this before. It's Futernick, but also people that I grew up with who know how to pronounce it say Futernick. It's a little disrespectful, but I'm also I'm used to it.
Okay.
It's better than the other names like Fuckernick or Futerfuck.
Okay.
I'll take Fuddy.
Okay. Fuddy it is.
The fan base knows me as Fuddy. I'm Fuddy.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Fuddy, for joining us here at Summer League. And
my pleasure.
Let's start here. We're obviously in Vegas. Jeremy, you got here yesterday.
I did.
So the fun is just now starting for you. Fuddy, when did you get here?
I got here Friday, but it feels like I got here like weeks ago.
Okay. So you got to go to the game on Saturday. We'll tell some stories from our experiences. We've seen a lot of each other.
Yes.
And I'm Vegased out is what I think the correct term is. I've been here
longer.
Been here since last Monday, and I've had a blast. It's very hot. Jeremy, I know. I'll say this: it's hot. It's cooler now, which is insane because it's 105 degrees outside. 117 degrees should just never happen.
No.
And I was joking around last night at our meetup, and shout out to everybody watching that was able to make it to our meetup at the Tilted Kilt at the Link last night.
Was told by many cocktail waitresses dressed like Britney Spears and like, baby, hit me one more time. To please get out of their way.
Yeah, that was
happened many times.
Not prepared for the experience, but it was clearly a fun experience for those that wanted to go there. I was saying that it's the type of weather that like turns me into an activist. Like, you're just like, no, this is wrong. Like, something has to happen. Like, I wanted to speak to the manager of the weather last Monday, and I'm ready. I'm very much miss New York. I never thought I'd miss like the smell of the Long Island Railroad at this much in my life, but
Vegas will do that.
Vegas will do that,
especially a week in Vegas.
On day 9, Fuddy. I'm on day 9.
I've been here for 4 days, and like my voice is gone. I'm a broken person. Every time I leave Vegas, I'm like, I can't wait to get back to my wife. I haven't tasted water in days.
Yeah, that's the dryness of it is what gets to you. Is this your first summer league, or you've been plenty of times, right?
I used to go a lot, but this is my first summer league since before the pandemic.
Okay, wow.
Gotta say, this one not as exciting as others. I was here for the Zion,
the earthquake game.
Yeah. Poor Kevin Knox, rest in peace. Saw him yesterday, still playing in summer league.
That's right, the Warriors. Yeah,
that was interesting.
Yeah.
Not starting in summer league. I was like, Kevin.
We need to talk about Kevin. That we're going. Unfortunately, that's that. Actually,
kudos to him though.
Summer league legend.
Still getting contracts.
Yeah.
I do think that's somewhat symbolic of how far the Knicks have come. That we were, overhyping Kevin Knox summer leagues in the past, and getting hopeful about Alonzo Triers. And this is no disrespect to either of them, but neither.
There's that part of the fan base that won't let it.
Won't let it go. The Frank Ntilikina summer leagues, exactly. Obviously, we're here for summer league for content, but like you're here for fun too, right? This isn't your first summer league.
This is my first.
This is your first summer league. Okay.
Yeah, because we were supposed to go a couple years ago, and then you decided to get engaged.
My bad.
And then you decided to get married last year.
Apologies. It's literally my fault. This is our first summer.
I'm just glad that you're not renewing your vows right now. Because that would.
It was quite the opposite.
I wouldn't be going.
My wife came with me to summer league to make sure that we got to be here this time.
This is my first summer league, and not my first time in Vegas. I've been to Vegas 3 times last 4 months, so I'm eager to not spend time outdoors. I was in LA before this for work, and then drove out here, and then we, in the middle of the desert, got out of the car to go to a restaurant, and it just feels like your whole body is on fire.
Yeah.
Like your own blood temperature your internal temperature is lower than what's outside. You kind of almost feel like you're on fire, as there's like kind of like a force field around you. You know what I mean? Like it's that kind of heat where it just radiates off of you.
It's a blow dryer.
It's not pleasant, but I gotta tell you, I like it better than the humidity. So I don't mind this too bad. I was at the pool this morning. It's going to get a lot hotter, and just stay inside, watch some basketball, Thomas and Mac, and enjoy the day.
What is everyone's game of choice?
I'm a craps player.
You're a craps player. Okay.
Blackjack for me.
We're both blackjack guys. Okay.
I like a little blackjack mixed in, but yeah, more craps.
Okay.
Once craps came into my life, it was like, it's hard to go.
Now you can't go back.
Yeah,
once you go craps, you can't go back.
That's
Got it. Have you done it? Disclose it if you'd like to, but how?
I am down a small amount.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
We had a good night Friday night, and then second night hit a very cold table at like an ungodly hour of the night. And but I know when to walk away, know when to, but there have been times where I've been here and I've won thousands of dollars playing craps.
Okay.
So in my mind, I'm like, I'm in the black forever.
Yeah.
One of them was here at
said
this
location.
hotel. Yeah.
Said hotel.
Redacted.
I'm choosing not to.
And then promptly broke into the pool at 5 a.m. And this place is that kind of place where like we like got a stern talking to, where it's like at the Win, we would have been arrested.
Right. Like you actually get escorted out.
Like we were at the cashier the next morning, or that morning rather, like getting our chips, and the woman was like, "Oh, you're the guys from the pool."
Like, so word travels
recognized,
fast.
but it's not like the guys at the pool that we asked to leave. It's the guys at the pool.
Like, oh wow, this is a good story for this weird hotel.
Yes.
So good memories here.
Good memories here.
Good memory.
Memory.
One
undisclosed location. Yeah. I don't know. I gotta emphasize how great it was seeing everybody last night, because that was. Jeremy, and obviously you plan the events, and we had all these meetups at T Squared, but all of those are for games. And I'm always curious when we go to just a meetup, which we haven't done in a while, but like, what's the turnout going to be? And I got to be honest, everybody when we got there was watching Copa. Was it Copa or the Euro final?
It's Copa.
It was Copa.
I walked in right as Argentina scored.
Okay, so like it was about to end.
It was about to end. It was like extended time.
Yeah. Okay, apology. I don't know. I know that after it's 0-0. Excuse me, 0-0 after 90. They play 2 15-minute extra periods. Right.
Correct.
It's like overtime, but you have to play.
They were this close to like penalty kicks.
Okay, that happens after the 2 15-minute overtime.
In Argentina, when they've won, which has been a lot, it's been using penalty kicks. That's been their bread and butter. So them scoring an extra time was significant.
So it's like hockey, but you play 2 overtimes no matter what.
There's no golden goal.
Exactly.
Okay, got it.
Exactly.
Oh, it's not sudden death. That's right.
It's not sudden death.
Argentina scored and they
were
kept
still
playing.
So you have it's not really overtimes, because it's like basketball overtime.
Right.
Exactly. Okay. Yeah. I just learned soccer. Excuse me, football. So it was just all that to say. It was really nice to see everybody last night, and there's an excitement around this team, fellas, and I
don't know what to do with ourselves a little bit.
Funny, you're closer to me in age. Like, I don't remember it being like the 90s are my first memory of the Knicks, but I catch them at the very end of the 90s. Like 97 is really the first year that I understood Knicks hype.
Right.
And then like since then, like I glorify the mellow years for really one really good season. But that's not anything close to what I think we're about to experience this year, right?
No. I mean, honestly, because of that season, though, I always have PTSD, because I'm like, you see what happened to the Grizzlies. You see what like anything can happen. But it just feels like they have built something, and you trust this front office. And the Brunson extension just is kind of like a nice bow on this offseason so far. Or maybe not a bow. Maybe they're not done.
Well,
I mean, they're not done, but yeah.
That's all.
Yeah.
This is where we turn to Jeremy. Obviously, I mean,
you had me on a talk cap.
Right. You're here to tell us the
Finally,
second
let me show you how it's done.
application.
Ask me about the film industry, Andrew, because
please.
I think I know a thing or two here, buddy. Right.
Jeremy, where's your head at right now with as constituted what the Knicks are? Not, I mean, we'll get into some questions and some curiosities that we might have remaining. But like, where's your head at right now with what the team looks like, what they've built? And I mean, as someone who likes to project and build things, what they've gotten to today, is it anything close to what you expected when you initially started doing all these projections?
No. I'll tell you what. Look, I mean, we go through all these iterations and it's fanfic. At the end of the day, we are fans. We can talk through, hey, this is what would happen and everything, but there's an element of extremism that comes from it where it's like, okay, well, so many factors have to come into play. The odds that Mikal Bridges would be available and that the Nets would be willing to trade with the Knicks, and like all of these pieces that had to come into the picture for the Knicks to be able to do it. So no, I didn't expect it. I thought at a moment it could happen. I was like, no, come on, it's the Nets. They're not going to do it. As of this moment, I mean, this team is a contender to me. Do I think that if they had one more piece through a trade that they would go from contender to the favorite? I do. But I mean that
Şengün's coming, Berman said.
Exactly. So once he's there, then it's totally fine. The Knicks are a true contender. But you know, it's a great time to be a Knicks fan. This is the best part about all of this is it feels sustainable. And in a league where windows are closing at a much faster rate than people think, having a set of teammates, a core that's all in their mid to late 20s, being able to do what they do, I mean, you feel good about the next 5 to 6 years. And the hope, of course, if you're a Knicks fan, is you want to win all of them. But if you can get one with this group, then I think that's all I'm asking for at some point. So I feel great about it. And I find it hard to believe that this is their finished product, that there is something in mind. And it's not like follow the breadcrumbs. It's just like, if you're the Knicks and you're going to keep looking at ways to add talent, like every team does, you're probably trying to think of ways to keep improving, keep growing. And they have enough talent on this roster where if they had to make moves, like this is the beauty of drafting so well. You look at someone like Tyler Kolek, first game, and it's Summer League. I'm going to completely caveat that. 777, no turnovers. Summer League.
Could have been more dimes if he was passing to NBA players.
Exactly. But it's just the thought of like, that's your next man up. You've got someone that you found through the draft that you could have gotten in the first round, that you actually got in the second round. And you're able to potentially have this player see real NBA minutes this year. And if he's seeing that, and then you think about, well, the next year, where does he fit? How does it affect other people? What does it mean? And that's way down the line that we don't have to worry about. But it's the fact that this front office can keep finding really good players around the margins that help support the Knicks and then get them to a higher point every single year because of what they're able to do.
Let's get into some questions or curiosities that we have, which obviously title of said episode that you're watching. I texted this to you guys beforehand, and I want to put an emphasis on right now. And it can be about next season if it's like a stylistic question or curiosity. It can be about the rest of the offseason, about what they might still do, whether it be something big. Obviously, CP had the report out there about Cat and how the Knicks are still interested, and the Randall and Mitch potentially being involved. Both you and Fred Katz have confirmed, or same brain more than anything, the theory of why they haven't signed Precious yet and why a sign and trade could be in the works still there. But Fuddy, we'll go to you first. Your biggest question about the Knicks at the moment, or curiosity, or worry, even if that's where you got to go.
Well, the greater worry is always that like it won't last because I'm old and I've had to live through so much misery.
Mhm.
And so there's
It's
always,
like we are doing a pod with John.
I mean,
okay. Got it.
John and I are about the same age.
Yeah,
and, you know, we think very similarly about the team sometimes, but short of the Tibbs.
Wait till you get to my
That's a
question.
special-
Wait till you get to
It's a special love.
Yeah.
We were sitting together at the game though on Saturday and just seeing Tibbs flanked by OG and Mikhail, just big grin on his face. Just
yes.
what a sight to see.
That's the closest you're gonna get to him, like on Christmas morning. Like
that is
dear
pure joy.
Santa. Give me the
that's his wedding day.
2 great wing defenders.
That's his wedding day. That's the greatest.
Literally,
day
that
of
was
his
his
life.
anniversary. He celebrated
Yes.
this weekend. Yeah,
Correct.
Yeah.
Married to the game.
Married, exactly. Yeah.
So I've a greater blanket of PTSD, and my concern is that we don't keep it up. But again, my gut feeling too is that they have built something very sustainable. For me, I think the most obvious thing is the Julius fit, what happens with Julius with his possible extension, and if it works. I want it to work. I like Julius. I don't quite understand a lot of the fan base's frustration with him as much as it is. We're a long ways from him giving the fans the finger. Like you could see it like in January when the team was firing on all cylinders, and he had changed a lot of the way that he plays, not as blinders on, like passing the ball more, not dribbling into 3 guys. And obviously adding OG like just took a lot of the pressure off him defensively, so he could just kind of relax and play to his strengths. I'm still just wondering, like over a season, like what that will look like, and if he's around for the greater ride with this team, because we know the guys that are, but obviously he's kind of up in the air. So to me, that's I think the obvious one, but also the one that's like I'm most interested to see what happens with him and his fit and his future with the team.
What are your thoughts on Fuddy's concern?
It's the exact same for me. I mean, it's thinking through. It's also, and we talked a little bit about this on a previous pod, but if you're the Knicks, you look around the league, what other teams are offering Julius Randle that max contract? The only team that has enough money as of right now it's the Brooklyn Nets. And it's the thought process of, okay, so like, does please. Julius really want to leave the Knicks to go to the Nets for them to sign him away and then likely trade him?
And then just get all of our picks back.
Right. Like,
send Evan Roberts in a real tailspin.
Again, it's going from the win to where we are right now.
Yep.
Yes.
Other than that, I just don't know. I mean, the Houston Rockets aim to have cap space, but of course, if they make some sort of trade, then they're going to pay Şengün, and they're probably going to be hard capped the first apron if they're getting someone, next year. The Jazz don't have a ton of money. That's even without Markkanen. The Spurs, a lot of teams are not going to have cap space, and it's going to be crazy because there's some talented players who will be available, but like Brandon Ingram, there was a report today that there's not a whole lot of action on the trade market. So it's wondering what Julius's value is. Are we seeing with these aprons players that are viewed as maybe in a territory of just, I don't know, top 30, whatever you want to call it, like this kind of sub tier of stars that qualify as stars, but maybe you wouldn't think of them as like the guy, where they're going to get squeezed on some of the margins. And just because they have been given a max in the future, it doesn't mean that they're guaranteed to getting one at the next go around, and teams can afford to play hardball. I mean, DeMar DeRozan got very lucky with the Kings, but if it weren't for the Kings, he probably doesn't get a contract that's really more than the mid-level exception. So like, there are players where that's going to be an issue. And for Julius, I think that's a major factor for him. But it could also be he's fine with the money. He just doesn't want to be extended now because it runs the risk of him being traded next year and all of that. But the fit is certainly questionable too. You look at what this Knicks team, why is this Knicks team so good? Yes, they've added talent, but they've primarily added great defenders who are fantastic catch and shoot players. That does not describe Julius Randle. However, Julius adds tremendous value, being that offensive hub, being that creator, the playmaker, finding guys, as someone like DJ has pointed out several times about the shooting abilities from the Knicks with the
Brunson,
gravity around there.
Mhm.
And so he obviously makes life better for the Knicks. It's just really a question of, is he the ultimate type of player that they see surrounding around Brunson and their cast of super role players? I don't say that as a slight. I just mean like that's essentially what they do. So I'm with Fuddy. Very, very curious about that.
I think where I land on the Julius side of things, and it's so funny how many times I've brought up the January. We've all done it. The January version of Randall, the 11-1 with OG, Randall, and Brunson in the lineup, right? And like that's been my go-to for defending anyone that wants to send him to the moon or justify, like, look at what the playoff sample was without him. And I will never get to see that January team again because Hartenstein signed with OKC. And I still think it's worth seeing. And like, that's why the new CBA makes it complicated, because I don't know if you can just take a year to see what it looks like. You might have to make a decision at a certain point to not lose him for nothing. But again, you bring up a good point. Where's he going? The fit of turning, like Monica McNutt brought it up on our pod like a month or so ago. If he can be your new Hartenstein, and he's the person you're the hub, the person you're running,
release valve,
exactly. Like if he's able to take advantage of double teams the way he was in that January, and it's why it's less about like January, like is the example why we should think the Knicks are going to be great. It's literally just the style of him finding open shooters. And now, and it's why my biggest question is going to be Tibbs related, but I'll save it for a few minutes. Like the lineups you could put around Julius now, where he's finding Brunson or OG or DiVincenzo or Mikal Bridges. And if playoff version of Josh Hart shows up and, the guy that turns into Klay Thompson suddenly, like, even like I just went through a bunch of Deuce McBride, who's like a 40% 3-point shooter now. That's a guy that can average like 8 assists a game next season. And it's why I'm very curious with, and maybe it is kind of tied into my biggest curiosity about how they're going to play. Like there's a version where Julius Randle averages fewer points a game, but is averaging closer to a triple double than he ever has in his career. And that's an exciting thing to project. And it's a curiosity of mine as well,
My biggest thing with Julius, and this is why you see potential interest in someone like Cat.
Mm-hmm.
Why I'm sure they would love a Giannis Antetokounmpo if they ever found a way to get what it takes. If he's like
anybody would love
right, of course. But I'll take it. But it's truly the thought process of you have a 4
mm-hmm.
who really does not defend like a 5,
Mm-hmm.
and he's not tasked with that responsibility because we know it's not the thing he's most comfortable with, and we also know that the way Tibbs trusts rim protection, it's not Tibbs. And it's not to say that they can't go small. It's not to say that they can't go with someone like OG to kind of see minutes at the 5, guarding the 5 like we saw with Embiid for some time in the Sixers series. But it's that philosophy of if you had someone who did all of the things that Julius did, not all of them, but a lot of the things offensively, he did the 4. And you had someone who at times you could trust a little bit more at the 5. Like I don't believe that Cat is trusted at the 5 in the way that it's like, yeah, you're our starting center, because we know that when Tibbs got there, he added Taj Gibson around him.
Mm-hmm.
We know that the Wolves made a conscientious effort to spend all of that draft capital on Rudy Gobert. Like there's a very clear understanding. This is what he is. This is probably what he isn't. And that's fine. Let's just create the infrastructure to support him. And that's to me one of the crowning differences between someone like Randall and another player, where it's if he can't defend the 5, that probably limits you in terms of your versatility, what you can do there. And I'm sure that plays a little bit into the extension, but I don't think that they're going to say, because we can't get him to do this, we're not going to sign him. It's really just, is there a better deal out there? Okay. If there isn't, let's also try to see if we can extend him. If that's not an option, then we have to reconsider and see where we're going.
Yeah. Anything else to add, Fuddy?
Hey, I wanted Melo to play the 4. Some things don't come to fruition, you know.
Oh man. Remember when he got to OKC, and in his introductory press conference, he was like, "Yeah, I'm happy to play the 4 next to Paul George."
I was
and
like,
Russell
you
Westbrook.
gotta be kidding me. Gotta be kidding me.
Years of this where we're starting Amari, you, and Chandler. And like they went out and got a 5 so that
Amari with Patrick Ewing's knees. Yeah.
Well, yeah. He ended up playing a lot of 4 because like Amari was barely there. And then man, the Kenyon Martin, Amari Stoudemire, Tyson Chandler lineups, it would make the most stern of spacing, like basically XJ, like people that emphasize spacing, they'd hate it. Those lineups back then. I would ask XJ, did you hate those lineups the way I projected you do?
It all stems, of course, from the fact that the Knicks had a get out of jail free card with the amnesty.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
And you could have forced Melo to play the 4 because you amnestied Amari Stoudemire instead of Chauncey Billups after picking up Chauncey Billups' option. And it's just nice to look at that and be like, we're so far, we're a million miles away from that. That's great, but that was pretty brutal.
Yeah, this front office, man. And look, I'm Mr. Defend the Melo trade, and it's way more about. It's less about like, did they give up too much? And it's like they gave up too much for Mikal Bridges, but they had so many other good moves leading up to this that you could splurge. That front office, in hindsight, did not make enough good moves before or after the Melo trade,
correct,
to justify such an all-in move. And it's why I've softened my stance of like, it was fine. Like, did the Melo trade's not the problem? The Bargnani's trade's the reason that we all hate that trade. But I go back and forth way too many times because people just don't like Melo, and that's where the claws come out. You know,
true.
So. All right, my curiosity, and then I'll go. We'll save the best for last, Jeremy. We'll save it for yours. I don't have a capability. You don't have a PowerPoint. Right? I didn't. Okay, good. Just make it short because I don't have the way to show it.
Did not come that prepared. I'm sorry.
Good. Good. So the day after the Mikal Bridges trade, I went. Shout out to Fred Katz and Shoot. Obviously, people know I produced that too. And Fred does an emergency reaction too. And I asked him then, it's when the first time I thought about it. And then Benji, I love it when I think something and then like Benji says it too. And it's like, oh, so I am thinking the right way then, because then I know the smartest people are also thinking this. But like, I've been on a Warriors deep dive lately, and I think I've said this on the pod before, but like, when did the death lineup show up? When did the Draymond, Iguodala, Clay, Steph, and there's one name in there. Oh, and Harrison. Well, it was Harrison Barnes at first, but then it obviously became Kevin Durant. But like the Harrison Barnes version of it, when did it show up? And like Kerr played with it throughout the first season in Golden State. They won 67 games, but Andrew Bogut started the majority of the games that year. And like David Lee was starting games for most of that season. And then it's when Lee got hurt that Draymond then got inserted into the starting 5 and the job became his forever. And it was the finals when they go down 2-1 to LeBron and the LeBronettes that Kerr makes the starting lineup adjustment and puts Iguodala, the death lineup that we all saw for their 73 win season. And Iguodala wins finals MVP because he has 3 good games, but gets inserted into the starting 5. Bogut barely plays the rest of the finals. And he just was like, go ahead, get every rebound. We're going to maximize the first shot. And I look at this roster, and what I asked Fred Katz that day was like, if they're not, because we had suspicions that Hartenstein, obviously Bagley reported when Mikal got traded that it's looking increasingly unlikely that Hartenstein was coming back. If they're not going to be able to bring back Hartenstein and they're going to go to a Mitchell Robinson starting 5 again, but now you add another wing defender, or another wing, really. I shouldn't call Mikal Bridges a wing defender. You have the potential, if OG Anunoby can be your 5, or really guard the 5 at one end and then Julius is your 5, your hub on offense on the other end, you can create your own version of the death lineup, recognizing Kevin Durant and Steph Curry are not on this team. And I'm wondering if Mr. Master of the Boards and Mr. Rim Protection, who did show last year, I will conform my style based on my personnel. The plays that they were running last year, we didn't see it all the first 3 seasons. And the personnel's changed again. And my biggest curiosity is Tibbs, who we read the reports and heard Fred being like, Tibbs is getting plays out of the Warriors playbook for running Jalen Brunson around screens. And it's so Hartenstein is Draymond, Brunson is Steph. Did he also notice in that film session, they're not starting a true center. They're setting records for offense and changing the sport and winning every game. I'm curious if Tibbs plays that same style or just notices the same way. And basically the long way of saying, I'm curious how much we see the OG at the OG lineups without Mitchell Robinson or a true center. That's basically my curiosity for next year. It's my biggest curiosity going into next season is the versatility, how much it's deployed next season. So
that's a good one. Yeah, and also the staggering too. It hasn't hit my brain that Josh Hart is coming off the bench again. That'll be interesting. And who's ending the games? There are going to be games where Josh Hart is in the lineup to end games.
Are we sure?
I think so.
So who's he playing over? So that's what I keep going back to.
Oh, well, who's the center?
So that's the
and
question.
Who are they playing?
Yeah. So and Josh Hart closing became a moment of contention last year because of the spacing issues that exist, especially when it's RJ, Julius, true center, Josh Hart, right? I understood that. It's my biggest frustration of the Miami series that Quentin Grimes sitting right there. And I love Josh Hart. He's a hero of mine too.
Absolutely.
I recognize the things he does poorly and how it can hurt the team sometimes.
Correct.
I think the curiosity with next season is so he's not going to close over Jalen Brunson, obviously. He's not going to close over the guy they traded 4 picks for.
True.
Or 5 if you include the Milwaukee pick. OG Anunoby just got $212 million. Julius Randle's made 3 All-Star teams and 2 All-NBA teams, and then a center. So how often is Josh Hart closing in this? I don't know if Jeremy, you have any thoughts on that logic, but one of my thoughts after the trade was how often is Josh Hart actually going to close next season?
I'd say it will work its way out. Because every year we go into it and it's thinking there's a log jam or when these guys can see minutes. Is Dante DiVincenzo going to get the amount of minutes that he was last year?
No.
Will it be to a point where he's unhappy? Probably not, but I don't know. But someone's going to get squeezed, like Deuce McBride. When everyone's healthy, probably not going to get a ton of minutes, but someone's not going to be healthy. And then he'll see an uptick. And when you look at the average on the year, it'll seem fine. And I think with Josh Hart, I do not trust OG Anunoby to stay healthy. At least not for a full season. I expect him to miss 20-25 games. Where you're talking about a player to slide in, I think Josh Hart would slide in just there. Julius Randle and Josh Hart last season, their on-off numbers were actually pretty good. The year before that, the shooting was terrible. So the hope, of course, is did they find something that works? But I agree in that, they're going to keep switching. It's going to be depending on the personnel that they're playing, the matchups, where they could decide to go small. And Julius closes as a 5, but maybe it doesn't happen a whole lot because Josh Hart is such a good rebounder that they say, all right, we'll focus less on that. Because that's the other thing. If you don't have a big man or Josh Hart in there to close games, you're probably sacrificing rebounding. And that's something that I don't believe the Knicks are comfortable doing. So I do think he could close. I just don't know if it will be when everyone's healthy.
That's the logic I'm using. It's with the healthy version of this team.
And to me, I'm there's a world where Tibbs is just so Hart obsessed.
He has to.
And he's having one of those games where he's got 13 rebounds and he's all over the place. And maybe they're up 10 points closing the game out. And Tibbs is just I want the firecracker in there right now.
So I agree with that. That's why it's more situational is where my curiosity comes from. It's less about.
I don't think he's closing every game.
Because if they've got a lineup where Deuce is cooking, I think he'll leave that in. Like those lineups where they're building a lead. We've seen that. We've seen them go to the fourth quarter with like a 4-point lead. The bench or whatever the fourth quarter lineup is to start builds it to 15 or 20. And it's like, oh, that lineup closed. Right. You know, it's very much in crunch time. It seemed like an automatic, like the turning point for me last season with the Quickly thing was the OKC game where they were making some kind of comeback or trying to keep it close. J Dub, the good one, or the better one,
Yes, the better one.
Takes Quickly off the dribble and kind of grown mans him into the paint. And like, it's not a shot to Quickly, just on ball, bigger defenders. Bigger offensive players give him problems. Yeah. And you like J-Dub hits a shot and you see Tibbs motion to the bench. I think I was on playback that night and I was like, he's about to put in DiVincenzo. All right, I understand. And then RJ checks in and it's like, oh, you value size. And he's now got a rotation of size. And I just I'm very curious what the first post game is going to be like when Mikal Bridges if it happens, where Josh Hart closes over Mikal Bridges because in a close game, and it's like we traded 5 picks for someone that can't close, or do we see the next evolution of his adaptation in Tom Thibodeau, where it's more so like I don't need a center on the court right now. Mm-hmm. Like if I need rebounding, Josh Hart is out there, and that's more where he goes to. So that's look. I like you mentioned John not being here and us talking about Tibbs. Like I feel like the three of us have been more pro than con. Mm-hmm. I think last year was one of my favorite seasons as a Knicks fan, and he's largely responsible for it. Totally. That team embracing his identity. My absolute favorite part during the playoffs was the Knicks beat also adapting the Tibbs mentality, where other players in other teams in other cities are missing games and they're like, oh, couldn't play tonight, huh? And it's like, right. You're reporters. Like, wait a minute. Yeah. And that just became the mentality. Like probably my most viral tweet of the playoffs was someone asked, like, what is the Knicks strength and conditioning program? They must be, like, what do they do to stay in such great shape? And I was like, they play regular season games. Right. Like that's what they do. They actually treat the regular season like it matters. And that's part of his culture and his identity. Now there's an X's and O's question that I'm very curious to see what he does with this new roster pool. So, all right, yeah. Jeremy, best for last.
The extension was definitely top of mind for me.
Okay.
I'd say let's talk about the center position.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
Because, I've seen people talking as if like the Knicks need a starting center. And to me, it's like Mitch is not a center who starts. Mitch is a starting center. The problem is I have trouble trusting Mitchell Robinson, not just from a health standpoint, but you think about how Isaiah Hartenstein was used as kind of a connector. The floater game doesn't just stand in the dunker spot. There's more to it. I mean, and Brunson even talks about this on the pod because of the lobs, where Mitch is huge on lobs, but his finishing has not been there the last couple seasons. And so it's not like this is a player who doesn't have value. There is. I mean, he is. There's tremendous value there. But it's then the question of, okay, well, who's backing him up? And if it's, if we can't figure that out, then it kind of goes back to the Randall of it all, where it's like, if you can't get Randall solved, then you need to figure out a solution there. And how does that impact Mitch? Because the way I see it with other players on the team and the new CBA, where you can't take more money in really. Okay, so you're not trading any of the Nova guys and you're not trading OG, and Deuce doesn't give you enough of a salary, but you could understand it if it were traded for a center, but it depends on the center. And then there's Randall, and then there's Mitch. So it's not going to be Kolek with his amount, or Keita Bates-Diop, or any of those guys. So you really have to think of, if you want talent and you have these rules and obstacles, how do you get someone in the door that helps you at a position that is of need? And we could talk about, well, the Knicks do have time before they have to upgrade the roster, because you don't have to solve everything before the season starts. And pretty much every year they have made a decision ahead of the deadline. Of course, this most recent one, it was on deadline day. But for the Knicks, they may not want to wait. I mean, as of right now, they still don't have Precious Achiuwa on the roster. They might be trying to do other things. But if Mitchell Robinson got hurt day one of training camp, there's a big question of, well, who do you trust to fill that void? And as of this very moment, there's no one on the Knicks who can do that.
What do you make of, like, Michael Scotto reported something to the sort of the type of player the Knicks are looking for with this last roster spot? And obviously Bagley yesterday said that they're talking to Precious, but I think we all somewhat expect Precious would be the guy if there's no other big move coming, right? What do you make of, like, Davis Bertans and basically another shooter, another catch and shoot guy being the other thing the Knicks are potentially looking at with that roster spot?
Similar with Shamet as well.
Okay.
Another guy who's been mentioned who, has bounced around. To me, it's really, you could look for depth and you could look for these pieces, and these are guys who are not on NBA rosters, but a large reason they're not on NBA rosters is because of the salaries that they had. There's a difference between Davis Bertans at $16, $18 million and Davis Bertans earning a small percentage of the tax mid-level exception. Same thing with Shamet. He was earning 11 million or so. Now he's going to be earning probably at most 5 million, but probably closer to the veteran minimum. Mm-hmm. To me, though, why are the Knicks interested in these players? Why is it that these players aren't signing elsewhere? It's not because there's no interest. I mean, the Scotto report had several teams interested in Bertans. So what is he waiting for? What are these other teams waiting for? Why isn't a team saying, here's the offer, take it or leave it, let's go? And to me, it's that there might be another piece here where the Knicks are moving something out. But if you're Bertans, you're Shamet, and you're looking at this Knicks team and you're thinking, okay, so it's Brunson, it's Bridges, it's Anunoby, it's Randall, it's Robinson. And then it's McBride, and it's DiVincenzo, and it's Hart, and it's presumably, Achiuwa, or fill in the blank at the center. That's 9 guys that I just named. Mm-hmm. And then you think of, okay, well, they drafted Kolek, and they like Kolek, and they're probably going to play him. That's 10. I don't think Keita Bates-Diop is going to see a ton of time, but if you wanted to have someone who is similar to Randall in some ways, like 48% of Randall, you found it. Like that's the sort of mindset where, yes, they could add shooting, but they can't add playing time. And we could talk about injuries, and we could talk about depth. But if you're either of those players and you're looking for an opportunity and you have hit a patch in your career where you don't have a lot of other opportunities in the NBA. For Bertans, it's more likely to be overseas. For Shamet, maybe it is, but you could find a team to stick around with the shooting he has. And same thing with Bertans. So why is it that it's not just why is there interest from the Knicks side? Because they wouldn't be interested and also feel like there's no playing time available. But where does that playing time become available? And we could look at it as like, well, the Knicks lost 4 or 5 key rotation players going to the playoffs last year. Could have used their 13th man being super helpful to them. And that's true. But also, why do they sign that in the first place?
Yeah.
And that's what's so puzzling to me, and why I can't help but wonder what else is at play here, and how, if at all, does it connect to the center position?
Yeah.
Who do you want at center? If it is a center, Fuddy.
I mean, Şengün would be awesome.
Şengün?
If we're talking realistically,
yeah.
Just bring Precious back. I don't know, like, just knowing what we have to offer left, barring some trade. The guy bought into the system. He's a New Yorker. He's obviously a Tibbs guy. You can't just like guarantee fit. He fits. Like, he's obviously not a real backup center, like in every sense of the word, but he's a part of the system. He clicked. He's a hard worker. Like, just bring him back. I think that's the easy decision. But yeah, outside of somebody that is not realistic.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I think that's where I'm at too. Just, what they accomplished last year.
They trade for Hardenstein?
Can they? Yes. Well, listen, give it a year, maybe. What they accomplished last year just turning Precious Achiuwa, who looked like he was going to be much more journeyman. Now the market has dictated his value now, and you know, the Knicks may be able to bring him back for significantly less than what Obi Toppin got.
Yeah,
but I think the fact that he was getting like consistent double doubles, now part of that was him playing the 4 for a lot of the season and starting for a lot of the season. But as a great depth piece, and if you give him a decent payday that he probably wasn't expecting when he was in Toronto last year, the style, he already knows the system, he already knows the culture, he already bought in, was an essential part to them winning a playoff game. Like that game 4 in Philly, and that going back to my curiosity is what gives me hope that he doesn't need a true center or a rim protector on the floor, because he saw what OG Anunoby guarding Joel Embiid was. I know it's not going to be every game. I know there's not going to be a 82 starts of OG Anunoby next to Julius
That'll keep him
Randle,
healthy.
4 or 5. Right? Well, I mean,
fresh for the playoffs.
the best point that has been made, I think both of you just made it, about my concerns with, like, you know, with Josh Hart potentially not closing. The biggest lesson we learned last year was you can never have too many healthy, good NBA players, because
that's right.
One might go down, and then another might go down, and then another might go down. And if you're telling me that they're not just going to have, like, no disrespect to Archie, no disrespect to Dwayne Washington, and obviously Obi's younger brother, like, the fact that Tyler Kolek is now going to be like the 11th or 12th man, and like maybe he becomes the next man up. Like, I don't think Dadier will be ever, like, he's like the very break glass in case of emergency plan, but like,
didn't love what I saw on. It was one game, but didn't love what I saw.
It's day one. It's like maybe
and he's also a kid,
a project. You know,
he's
like he's the guy's what, 18 right now.
Yeah.
So like,
if you switch him and Kolek like in positions of drafting, I think you might have a different perspective on Dadier, but
yeah, that makes more sense.
Kolek's making more money than Daddy is this year. So.
That's correct.
One wonders if the reason that Dadier signed for what he did, it was a guaranteed roster spot.
Correct.
I look at how the roster is constructed, and depth is going to be their best play. And if Precious becomes a great depth piece, and he starts off as the backup center, I'm not giving up on Jericho Sims. I don't want him to be part of the plan A. I'm looking at Jeremy. You might be.
He can jump really high.
He can. Listen,
he can.
I am of the mindset that a reason you draft Huck Porty and put him on a 2-way is because you're essentially going to make him your Jericho Sims of the future, because of how Sims was treated 2-way for a whole season and then given a minimum contract. And it's kind of like Sims is going to be a free agent next year. The Knicks could give him a minimum contract, but also they could pay Huck Porty less for the same, basically, production. Not because Sims isn't good, but because of the amount of playing time that Sims would likely have. You could give that to Huck Porty. I mean, we're talking about maybe 400 minutes, probably less. And I'm not saying that isn't important, but if you have enough talent in front of someone like that,
like 2 Brunson games.
Right. Exactly. So if you're the Knicks, and this goes back to the positional strength, we're like, yeah, they've got depth at every position except at the 5. And where I'm at is if there's no sign and trade, I'm more than happy to see Precious Achiuwa come back, be kind of the de facto backup 5. And then, you know, if you were to get a center right now, and then you say to Precious, hey, we'd like to bring you back. If I'm Precious Achiuwa, I'm thinking, why? I could get way more playing time elsewhere. But if you were to sign Achiuwa now and then trade for a center 6 months ago, the control is completely out of Achiuwa's hands. And like, is it doing him dirty? Maybe, but also it's within the best interest of your team. And the Knicks are then in a position where they are not losing depth. And that's kind of where, if Sims is not going to be an integral piece to your future and you would rather replace him with someone cheaper who will give you pretty much the same production, using him and then adding salary to get you past the amount of Nick Richards. Like, hence why I'm in favor of getting Bertans and signing him to a $3 million contract, or Shamit. Like any of the guys you can pair with Sims. So you send both of them out and you take less money in, and then you're able to get your Nick Richards. Or you can use Sims and say like any of these guys on a minimum contract and get Kessler. By minimum, I mean like, signing Shamit, signing Bertans, instead of giving them $3 million, giving them the veteran minimum or a little bit above that, finding a way to do it, like positioning yourself. But as of right now, go into this season with the most depth that you can if you're not making another big move that involves Julius, and you're going to be a really good team. And then you have the opportunity, like you do pretty much every year at the deadline, to get even better.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
Yeah.
So those were our off-season curiosities at the very moment, live from Summer League here in Las Vegas. I would be remiss if I didn't include some type of movie question at the very end of this. We got one film fan, one theater film connoisseur, and someone literally in the industry.
He's talking about me, by the way.
Obviously, I'm talking about Jeremy in the industry. So I just movie on your radar right now. I don't want to end this like fantasy and be like best thing you've seen late this year, but maybe that is the correct way to do it. But like the movie that like stands out. And listen, to the kids watching, movies are things you go to a movie theater. A movie theater is that thing you pass on the way to the mall. Malls are things that we all used to hang out at before you guys got the internet.
I get an Orange Julius and take a stroll, go hit
Hot
lids.
Topic.
Hot Topic.
Yeah.
Go to Claire's, get your ear pierced.
You haven't been to Long Island recently, have you? Like malls are just like,
that's still rocking?
Dude, they're
Roosevelt
like
Field Mall still rocking?
Roosevelt Field's in good shape. I will say that. Roosevelt Field's in good shape. But like go to Massapequa, the one out there, it's like all that's there
still
is
1995.
Yeah. Well, no, I'm more saying like they look abandoned.
Oh,
that's what I'm saying. And it's more part of the industry. They're all going to turn into Amazon centers one day.
Yep.
But yeah, I had a moment going to a baby, one of my friends' baby's birthday party. And I went to the mall that I know that's around the corner, and like the only store there was Dick's Sporting Goods. And there's an export. That's like there's a gym. And it's like, all right, so the rest of that's gonna turn into an Amazon distribution center, isn't it?
Oof.
So all that to say, to the older folk out there that want to hear us talk about movies, we'll wrap with this. The movie that's on your radar for this year so far, buddy.
I saw that Sean Baker has a new movie coming out, won the Palme d'Or. For those of you who don't know, he did the Florida Project and Tangerine. He just makes very, very cool.
Red Rocket.
Yeah.
Red Rocket, Red Rifle. Red Rocket.
Yeah. With Simon Rex.
Yeah. Scary Movie 3.
Great.
Sorry, that's what I know him from. But Scary Movie 3.
Yep.
Yeah.
He's great in both.
Yes.
Just does like very cool indie movies are very hard to make in this day and age, and still manages to do it and get them seen by people, which I applaud. But Florida Project, especially if you haven't seen it, is phenomenal.
I love that movie.
It's a phenomenal movie, and I'm just happy that somebody's still making movies like that. So, his new movie, I forget what it's called.
I forget what it's called too.
Yeah.
But I know it's
always get excited when he has something new.
Yeah. All right, Jeremy.
I'll say Thelma.
Oh,
the June Squibb movie that just came out. I mean, she's 94 years old. To be doing anything with action. I think she said the hardest thing in that whole movie for her was going upstairs. So I look, kudos to her to be able to still be working and doing that sort of thing. So my parents said it was great. I'm really excited to see it.
Nice.
I hope she can, maybe bring home some hardware early next year.
So aside from the obvious Deadpool Wolverine coming out in 2 weeks, I'll give two. One that's out now that I swear I've been staring at the movie times to be like, because I'm not like, you guys know me. I don't drink. I don't necessarily gamble much, and all sports end at like 9 o'clock here. So there's nothing to stay up for, but I'm someone that stays up all night.
Yep.
So I'm like, do I go check out Long Legs, this horror movie with Nicolas Cage that every single film person that I follow and whose opinion I value is like, you have to see this. It's terrifying. So Long Legs is one. And then he's done it to me again. And maybe the name of the movie is so perfect, but M. Night Shyamalan's Trap. Like I'm in. He has trapped me into an excitement for an M. Night Shyamalan
A
movie.
dirty Sixers fan.
Yeah, listen, he can get some.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But I am very in on the premise, the trailer. You mentioned Sean Baker. Like you're glad that someone like him is making movies because like movies like that don't get made a ton. I'm glad that M. Night Shyamalan still makes movies, even if I don't necessarily love them after I see them. But the fact that like the only time he's ever dabbled in like universes is the split Unbreakable Glass universe. And then after Glass, he was like, all right, I'm going to go back to original stories. And they may not always be winners, but I'm so in on the Josh Hartnett renaissance that's happened since Oppenheimer. And I'm very curious. I cannot wait to see Trap. Like for those who don't know the premise of Trap, a guy takes his daughter to like a concert for like a teen pop star. Mm-hmm. And he notices that there's like extra security and riot gear forming around the stadium. And he gets up and goes and asks one of the attendants, like, what's going on? And the guy says, I'm not supposed to say anything, but the butcher, and apparently there's like a local serial killer in the area. He's supposed to be at this concert tonight, and this whole concert is built to trap him. Like we're gonna catch him. I'm not gonna say anything else, but the next part of the trailer that I don't recommend seeing because it kind of gives away blew my mind. And now I need to see the rest of the movie.
But I was talking to my friends about this. I believe that the plot point, there's got to be another twist.
That's why I'm waiting for it too.
Because it can't just be like, here's the whole movie of the trailer. And a lot of times trailers do that, right? You can tell when a movie is pretty much solved. But for this, I just feel like it's a classic M. Night Shyamalan twist that's going to happen on top of this. Like the idea of, what if his daughter is the one?
Right. Like, dude, I thought about it. What if his daughter is the killer?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like you just don't know. And I hope it's not that because it means it's lazy. Because if I can come up with it, then it's pretty bad. But like that.
I want to like the Village ending.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, come on.
I will say the Village, I've softened on. I in the moment, I was like, this is stupid. Really?
Yeah. When I went to see it in the theater, I was like, that's when he kind of lost me.
Yeah.
Like,
the twist at the end of the Village. When she jumps the fence and it's like really like this is quite literally Long Island where you all are right now.
She's headed to the mall.
Like honestly, what the wall looks like now at least I'm very in on Trap and on Shyamalan's next movie. So
fair enough.
Alrighty, Fuddy, Jeremy, this was a blast. We did it, Joe. You know what? I'm not going to say anything about politics. People came here for an escape.
That's right.
And we hope you weren't trapped. We hope you escaped.
I just like to say, as someone who's never talked about an assassination or an attempt about a U.S. president, I'm not going to say anything on this topic. That wouldn't
be our MO to talk about that on this podcast.
It's just new territory for me that I don't feel comfortable talking about right now, and we'll just leave it at that.
Yes. There's an age. There's an amount of years that have to have aged before we can talk about an assassination attempt.
I don't want to talk anyone's ears off. So.
Oh my gosh.
What? I don't.
It's a thinker. That was a thinker. Take me a second.
It took
me a second.
1, 2, 3.
There's a reason why I'm an actor.
There you go.
Take a beat.
Oh, man. Okay. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in to this Summer League edition of the Knicks Film School Podcast. Fuddy, as always, thank you for stopping by. We appreciate you. Do you have anything you want to plug before you get out of here?
I will be on a Netflix show in September called Nobody Wants This with Kristen Bell and Adam Brody.
Hell yeah.
I play a friend of Adam Brody's who plays on his Jewish rec league team. Typecast.
Okay.
Nice.
Okay.
But yeah, it's a cute little show. He's like plays like a young rabbi, and like he falls in love with like this Spitfire Shiksa in Kristen Bell.
Adding it to my list now. So, there you go.
Yeah, it should be a cute little show.
Awesome. Yeah. Awesome. So check out Fuddy in the not too distant future. And until next time, thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. And we'll speak with you soon.